Does the idea of coming up with a budget or a spending plan for retirement make you feel uneasy? Well, you're not alone. Oftentimes, I come to people who are getting ready to retire and I ask them to outline what they expect their spending to look like in retirement. And their first reaction is one of discomfort. Perhaps they've never created a budget before. This doesn't make them unsuccessful financially. If they're approaching retirement and they've saved up enough that they can take that next step, certainly they've done a lot of things right. A lot of households don't create month-to-month budgets. But when you're approaching retirement, it is important to have at least a fairly rough idea or a relatively decent idea of how much you're going to spend on different things as you enter retirement so that you make sure that you're not spending too much or even spending too little. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about sort of the 6 top categories where it would be good to sort of classify or quantify how much you're spending on a month-to-month basis. I'm going to give you the broad categories so that you can take sort of a simple approach to figuring out how much you're spending. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about a really simple shortcut. If you want to know how much money you need to budget to spend in retirement, there is a shortcut method. Now, I don't recommend this for people who are about to enter retirement, but it is a decent way for people who are still a few years removed from retirement to get a sense of how much they're going to need on a month-to-month basis when they retire. So the first category of spending that we're going to want to capture for someone who's getting ready to retire is going to be housing. And in this category, we're talking about things like rent. If you're renting in retirement, you're going to want to know how much to budget for rent. If you own your home, how much you're going to pay for property taxes, what the costs for your utilities are, roughly on a month-to-month basis, or at least on an annual basis, how much your maintenance costs are going to be, house insurance, and various services that go to your house beyond just utilities. So I'm thinking about things like cable, internet, cell phone we could put into personal items, we could put it into household items, but the various services that you're paying for on a month-to-month basis. The second category is food and personal items. So the big items here are going to be groceries, how much you expect to spend on a month-to-month basis on groceries, personal care products, including personal services, so like massages, hair care, things like that, memberships, clothing, charitable donations, and gifts would be in this category. The third category is medical and insurance. And for people who have been working and have had a benefits program through their work until the point of retirement, this category may be a bit of a new one. You may actually have to pay out of pocket for some medical services. A lot of things are covered by provincial health plans. That's going to vary from province to province. But you may have some out-of-pocket costs to pay for healthcare services in retirement. So in this category, we'll include things like dental care, prescription drugs that might not be covered by a plan. Also, life insurance. If you are carrying a life insurance policy into retirement or policies, those premiums would need to be carried or covered here, and any other insurance or health-specific insurance products you want to cover here. The fourth category is transportation. So if you lease a car, we're going to want to include lease payments here, the cost of insurance, the cost of fuel, and the cost of maintaining your vehicle. The fifth category is entertainment. So in this category, we'll include things like restaurant visits, sporting events, tickets to sporting events, concerts, entertaining. So if you enjoy entertaining friends and family at your home, we might have a separate category for entertaining. Sports and sporting equipment would be in this category as well. And then also other entertainment purchases like computers, video game consoles, anything else that sort of falls outside of that home and personal care bucket we want to capture here in entertainment. Entertainment, I kind of categorize as a discretionary bucket. It's one where you want to have it there, but if things ever got tight, it's an area where you could cut back. So I kind of put those extra items like computers and certain technology purchases into this bucket, but really that's up to your discretion. And then the final category is travel. So now we're firmly in that discretionary bucket, but we're thinking about things like airline trips, hotel stays abroad, miscellaneous spending that you have or that you do while you're traveling, we would include in the 6 buckets. So those are the 6 buckets. And so it's a fairly simple process. Like when I walk people through this, I give them a very simple spreadsheet that helps them calculate this, and it tallies up sort of mandatory, or we'll call them core expenses, and then discretionary expenses. And then we use that as sort of a jumping off point to start to plan retirement income. And really the exercise shouldn't take very long. If you've got, a few months of credit card and banking statements handy, you could sit down with your significant other and walk through that in the course of an hour or two in the afternoon and come up with a rough idea is sort of a starting point for retirement income budget. But if all that seems overwhelming, you're like, Mark, that just seems like too much work. Is there a faster way to calculate this? And I'll give you the quick way. Now, again, I'll disclaimer this. This is not something I'd recommend for somebody who's about to hand in their letter of resignation and get set to retire. But it's a good way to do planning, let's say a decade or 5 years out from retirement, to get a rough idea of how much you're going to need to support your lifestyle. So let's say that you plan to retire and you want to live the exact same lifestyle that you live today, which is fairly common. Most people don't want to have dramatic changes in their lifestyle when they retire. They may want to add some discretionary travel items in the early years of retirement, but typically they don't want to lower their standard of living. So this is the approach for somebody who just wants a very rough and tough idea of what their retirement budget should look like. The 30-second method is what I'm going to call it. So the first thing you do is take your monthly after-tax income. So the amount of income that actually hits your bank account after taxes have been deducted. That's the first step. The second step is back out your mortgage payments, assuming that you're going to have your mortgage paid off at retirement. Back out any regular savings plan contributions that you're making. So RSP contributions, tax-free savings account contributions, non-registered contributions, things like RESP contributions potentially could be backed out of that as well. And then finally, back out any other major ongoing expenses that you're not going to carry into retirement. So if you're helping a child through university, that might be something that's going to be done by the time you retire, so you can back that out. So we've taken your after-tax income, we've removed savings, mortgage, and any other expenses you're not going to be there when you retire. And then finally, you're going to take out any work-specific spending. So if you have commuting costs, if you have wardrobe that you buy for work that you may not have to buy for when you're retired, you could back that out. So once you've backed out all those expenses, that should leave you with an approximate after-tax monthly number. That becomes your retirement income number, because everything else we're going to keep in our life. We're going to have the same other spending patterns. We're going to live in the same place. We're just hopefully not going to have a mortgage payment, and we're not going to have some of those other ongoing expenses. That becomes sort of your monthly retirement income target to work with, and that's sort of the rough and tough method, or the 30-second method that I started out describing. So hopefully this gives you a helpful jumping off point to create a retirement income plan. Again, budgeting feels kind of strange for a lot of people. That doesn't make that's very normal. But as you're approaching retirement, it is important to have a clear sense of what your planned spending is going to look like, so that you make sure that you have the proper income plan in place. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, and I'll speak with you soon. Take care.